Hi, so I'll be talking to you about the wave theory of time. So this paper is going to describe a new tense theory of time, wave theory. I'm going to explain the theory, then explain why it's better than presentism, and explain why it's better than moving spotlight theory. So eternalism says that you've got space and time. Eternalism says that things in both the past and the future exist simplistic, so the dinosaurs exist, Napoleon exists, Josephine exists, and there's me existing. You see that I move around more than Napoleon, Josephine, or the dinosaurs. The moving spotlight theory adds in that there's this present moment that moves throughout time. So there's this moving now that moves throughout time like that. Wave theory says the following. Wave theory agrees that there's a four-dimensional manifold. It agrees with the eternals. Wave theory agrees that there's all these four-dimensional hunks. They all exist simplistically. The same hunks of matter that the pejorativist eternalist says exists, the wave theorist says exists. What, however, they disagree over is that they say that the everyday objects, you, me, everyone we know, every artifact, every naturally occurring geographic feature, and so on, they are not four-dimensional hunks. Rather, the three-dimensional objects that we know every day, they are constituted by the presently existing temporal parts of the four-dimensional hunks. So when that time is present, those highlighted red temporal parts of those hunks constituted dinosaurs. When that time is present, those chunks of those hunks constituted Napoleon and Josephine respectively, and later on, different chunks of those hunks constituted Napoleon and Josephine respectively. And right at the minute, that chunk of that hunk constitutes Nikk Effingham, a three-dimensional object, and it constitutes me at that time. And by constitution, I mean just that relation, which constitution theorists say hold between lumps of clay and statues. So, according to the wave theorist, I'm constituted by the presently existing instantaneous temporal part of the hunk that the pejorativist identifies with Nikk Effingham. And just as the statue has properties which the lump constituting it does not, I have properties which that chunk of that four-dimensional hunk does not. I have different persistence properties. I will exist tomorrow. The chunk constituting me will not. I have different sortal properties. I am a person. The chunk constituting me is not. We have different mental properties. I think. The chunk constituting me does not. I call this wave theory because everyday objects are a bit like a wave. Think of an idealized ocean composed of portions of water, which themselves do not move around very much. When a wave travels through the ocean, changing the property of those patches of water from being flat to being deformed and bulging, the patches of water will constitute the wave, and different patches will constitute the wave at different points in time. I'm saying the same thing about all of reality. Time is composed of four-dimensional hunks. They do not move through time. But over time, those chunks have different properties, such as changing from being non-present to being present, in the same way that water changes from being deformed to being flat, from being flat to being deformed and bulging. When they become present, when those chunks become present, they constitute the everyday objects around us. Like a wave, the constituted everyday objects move through the unmoving four-dimensional hunks in the four-dimensional manifold. One note, wave theory can perfectly reflect how we talk about the present moment as an enduring thing that we follow hand in hand as we persist through time. So in the same way that the moving spotlight theorist says that the present is a moving thing that moves through time like this, the wave theorist can say just that. Just as chunks of matter, they say it's literally true, just as chunks of matter constitute further objects, slices of space-time constitute further regions. In particular, the slice of space-time that the eternalist would identify as being present constitutes a three-dimensional space-time region corresponding to the present moment. Call it now. So there it is. That that space-time region there constitutes another space-time region, which is only three-dimensional, called now. And just as the chunks constituting everyday objects changes as time passes, now is constituted by different substantival regions as time goes by, like that. Now, this paper is short, so I'm only going to discuss one feature of wave theory, which is its benefits compared to presentism and to moving spotlight theory. So wave theory is better than presentism because it can capture truth makers for past and future truths. To see how, we need to start by understanding constitution theory. Constitution theory is meant to be explanatory. If a lump, L, constitutes a statue, Goliath, G, then G exists because L constitutes it. But if an existential fact about some X is explained by some more fundamental fact, then X cannot appear in that more fundamental fact. Thus, the explanation for Goliath's existence cannot be that the lump, the L, constitutes G. Rather, some fact about L must explain both G's existence and L's constituting G. For instance, that fact would be that L has a certain shape, was sculpted by a certain artist, was made of some given material, and so on. We can set aside the exact details and say that the conjunctive predicate, which L falls under in order to constitute G, is its C predicate. I'll use Cx to represent the C predicate, which is such that the thing falling under it constitutes X. Note, by the way, that X is the name of an object, not a sort or kind. Thus, if L constitutes G, if and only if it has a certain shape, S, was sculpted by a particular artist, R, at a particular time, T, and is unsurrounded by other matter, U, then we could say that the conjunctive predicate, CG, is defined as Rx and Sx and Tx and Ux. So X falls under CG when it's R, S, T, and U. I'll say that the different conjunctive predicates of a C predicate are its B predicates. That is, the bits of the C predicate. Now we can return to wave theory. When chunks fall under the appropriate conjunction of B predicates, the chunk constitutes some everyday object. Assuming that the tenth fact about what time is present is explanatorily prior to the facts about constitution, one of the B predicates of every C predicate will be the predicate presently exists. The remaining B predicates will be predicates about mass, size, shape, other fundamental characteristics of the four-dimensional chunk. I'm going to say that the conjunction of every B predicate other than the predicate presently exists is a C minus predicate, which I'll represent as C minus X. Every temporal part of every hunk falls under a C minus predicate. Moreover, that it falls under a C minus predicate is a fact which never changes. When those temporal parts become present, they will temporarily fall under the relevant C predicate, and they will come to constitute a further entity. Before and after this, they will constitute nothing. As an example case, we're going to consider Napoleon and Josephine. The wave theorist says that there are two four-dimensional hunks, Hn and Hj. Take two temporal parts of those hunks from some instant in 1800 AD when Napoleon and Josephine were next to one another. Call them Nt and Jt. Were they present, those temporal parts would now respectively fall under the C predicates C Napoleon and C Josephine, and would constitute Napoleon and Josephine. Even when those temporal parts are not present, however, they do fall under the corresponding C minus predicate. Nt is C minus Napoleon, Jt is C minus Josephine. So there are the facts as wave theory sees it. C predication, and more specifically C minus predication, will do all the work in wave theory accounting for truth making. Wave theorists will give truth makers very similar to that of the block theorist. The block theorist, as the PowerPoint slide shows, will say that the truth maker for the sentence S, where S is the sentence Napoleon was once next to Josephine, is the conjunctive state of affairs of 1. There existing a four-dimensional hunk identical to Napoleon. 2. There existing a four-dimensional hunk identical to Josephine. 3. There being a time t at which Napoleon has an instantaneous temporal part, nt, and Josephine having an instantaneous temporal part, jt. 4. those two temporal parts being next to one another, and 5, the sentence existing at time t star, where t is earlier than t star. The wave theorist is going to say something very similar. We're going to use C predication to alter it slightly. Being tense theorists, they're not going to be interested in the truth maker of the tense sentence. They'll be interested in the truth maker of the tense proposition. Was Napoleon is next to Josephine. They'll deny 1 and 2, replacing them with alternatives using C predication. 1 dash, there exists a 4-dimensional hunk, Hn, and the instantaneous temporal part of Hn is C minus Napoleon, and there existing a 4-dimensional hunk, Hj, and the temporal part of which is C minus Josephine. They'll then tweak 3 and 4 to say 3 dash, there's a time t, Hn has nt as an instantaneous temporal part, Hj has jt as an instantaneous temporal part, and nj and nt and jt are next to one another. Finally, we need to pour in that tensed ingredient, which we'll do by endorsing 5 dash. T is earlier than now. Remember, now is that constituted space-time region that moves with the present moment. Now, 1 dash to 3 dash involves some redundancy, so we can reduce that down, we can give it shortened. This is what the wave theorist will say is the truth maker for the proposition that Napoleon was once next to Josephine. That there exists a conjunctive state of affairs, S, such that there's a time t, t is earlier than now, now. At t, there exist 2 objects, nt and jt, these chunks of these 4-dimensional hunks. They both fall under 2 C minus predicates, C minus Napoleon and C minus Josephine, and those 2 chunks are next to one another. And that is what makes true that Napoleon was once next to Josephine. Similarly, we can do this for all other tense propositions. The wave theorist can provide truth makers for all past and future truths. Now, not only can it do this, but it might be able to do this whilst guaranteeing certain presentist intuitions. Consider the sort of intuitions that drive one to become a presentist. For instance, 1, non-present things don't exist. 2, non-present things don't exist simpliciter. 3, non-present material objects don't exist simpliciter. Or 4, Napoleon, who long ago ceased to be, doesn't exist simpliciter, similarly for other past and future everyday objects which don't presently exist. Now, 1 and 4 are different. The presentist might think they go together, but they need not. Indeed, some self-avowed presentists already think they come apart. Zimmerman, for instance, is a presentist who thinks past and future regions of space-time exist, even though there aren't any material objects to occupy them. He denies 1 and 2, but he accepts 3 and 4. The wave theorists can do similar. They deny 1 to 3, but they accept the presentist intuition 4. They accept that Napoleon, who long ago ceased to be, doesn't exist simpliciter. If that's the intuition you really care about, if that's the one you want, you can keep safe that presentist intuition, solve your truth-making issues, and become a wave theorist. Presentism is not as good as wave theory in that regard. Wave theory is also better than moving spotlight theory. The classic problem for moving spotlight theory is, how do I know now is now? Given moving spotlight theory, Napoleon exists simpliciter. It's also true that he's thinking, I presently exist, back in 1800 AD, and he's thinking it's simpliciter, in the same way that an instantaneous temporal part of Napoleon thinks simpliciter on the block view. Thus, Napoleon is thinking that he presently exists, according to the moving spotlight theorist, but he's wrong. And if Napoleon is wrong, then maybe we are wrong about being present. Since it's unthinkable that we could possibly be wrong, that now is the present moment, something has gone awry. Now, given wave theory, they've got an easy way out of this problem. Given wave theory, Napoleon doesn't exist simpliciter. He used to exist, but no longer exists. All that exists is some 4-dimensional hunk of matter that was once intimately related to Napoleon via the constitution relation. So Napoleon isn't thinking, nor indeed is any chunk of the 4-dimensional matter. In the same way that, given standard constitution theory, only people think, whilst lumps of organic matter constituting them do not think, the wave theorist says that whilst you and I think, and whilst Napoleon once thought, the chunks of 4-dimensional matter that constitute us and once constituted Napoleon do not think. So is there a past entity thinking that it's present? No, says the wave theorist, there is no such entity. the problem is solved. This solution is similar to Peter Forrest's solution. Forrest claims that only presently existing things can think, i.e. only presently existing things are conscious. The wave theorist is saying exactly the same, but they are improving on Forrest's supply in two ways. Firstly, Forrest's claim is originally a physical, not metaphysical doctrine. Braddon Mitchell puts it thus, quote, Forrest says, some hold that consciousness is some byproduct of the causal fission that takes place on the borders between being and non-being, end quote. In being a causal matter, it's a physical matter contingent on the laws of nature. But it's weird for presentness to have that sort of contingent effect. Wave theory makes the sentience of presently existing people a purely metaphysical result. It's a result not of facts about causation and laws of nature, but of constitution, a relation solely under the purview of metaphysics, not science. The second way it's better than Forrest's view, the second way it improves upon it, is that Forrest gives presentness a very limited role. Unless we add elaboration, the only upshot of presentness is that the things at that time are conscious. Presentness is a niche matter, relevant only to that single, admittedly very important feature of reality. But given wave theory, presentness is relevant to just about everything, whether it concerns consciousness or otherwise. At non-present times, not only are there no conscious beings, there's no tasty beings, there are no beautiful beings, there's no artificial beings. For the properties of tastiness, beauty, and artificiality are the properties of everyday objects, bread, statues, chains. Since everyday things are constituted things existing only at the present moment, without presentness, there can be no such things. Presentness is no longer a niche matter only to do with consciousness. It's a matter of great importance relevant to just about everything. So that's my presentation on what wave theory is and why it's better than both presentism and moving spotlight theory. Thank you for that, and thank you for listening.